Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the MoeGamer podcast. I'm Pete Davison from MoeGamer.net, and as usual I'm joined by my good friend Chris Caskey of MrGilderPixels.com. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing great, Pete. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Enjoying the weekend. I had a stressful Friday, so it's nice to just be able to kick back and relax with some games and some good conversation. So,
perfect.
Yes. So, today's episode, when we get into our main topic, is going to be themed around the subject of puzzle games. So that will be our third segment for today. As usual, we will kick off with a discussion of the news, followed by a bit about what we've been playing first day. So, let's jump right into the news. Chris, I know you've been frantically posting some bits and pieces in the channel, so why don't you kick off with something?
Yeah, so it's just been kind of a interesting couple weeks. There's been some stuff that I've avoided posting because most of it's just been a lot of launch date announcements for stuff we already know exists, and I don't really consider that news per se. But one launch date I think is worth mentioning, and that is we finally have a date for Death Stranding.
Yes.
So, November 8th, my friends, we are going to get to enjoy this massive weirdness. The new trailer that was released alongside the launch date contains some genuine gameplay footage for the very first time. It's just weird Metal Gear. It's just weird Metal Gear. To the point where the enemies, when they see you, make the same noise. It's gonna be great. It's just like Metal Gear with ghosts. I don't know how else to describe it, but it looks amazing. The Decima engine is unbelievable. There appears to be quite a bit of kind of navigation puzzle solving going on, because like traversing the landscape is super important. So there's like cool puzzles and tools. There's a lot of this kind of just like future tech, speculative future tech that they've just kind of created for like navigation in the future, and it's really cool to see this stuff at play.
I've not looked into it in detail as yet, but I know it certainly sounds like there's going to be some sort of connectivity in there as well, because I know Kojima himself has been talking about sort of building connections between players and that sort of thing, so it's going to be interesting to see what that means. And yeah, that would be an entirely appropriate thing to explore in a successor to Metal Gear as well, especially when you take into account some of the stuff that was in Metal Gear 2 in particular.
Yes.
Yeah, very much a theme that's worth exploring. Kojima's been kind of adorably humble about this over the last few days from what I've seen. So he's sort of like, yes, here's my trailer. I hope you like it. It's I've been working hard on it. Please enjoy it.
Yeah, well, I encourage everybody to watch the trailer. It's 8 minutes long, so it's basically a short film. It's not even really a trailer at this point, but it's amazing, and it's just pure Kojima. It's wonderful. If there's anyone who is remotely worried about kind of some of the feeling of loss that Metal Gear Solid, was it 5? 5? Yeah, yes, 5 kind of had with it. It's hard because I don't even remember that 5 exists sometimes. So this game looks like it's going to be proper. I don't really know how else to describe it, but like my Kojima fanboy like feelers are twitching. It's right. He's free to do what he wants finally, and I'm honestly impressed that he's making a release date. I was joking with all my friends for the past couple weeks that you just watched Death Stranding is going to not make the PS4. It's going to be a PS5 launch title. Like that's for sure what I thought was going to happen. But we're going to have it in 5 months. Yeah.
It's quite a bit sooner than people were expecting, I think. So yeah, that's all very exciting. Looking forward to seeing the final product there.
And it's cool because if you've ever wanted to dive in with Kojima, this is a new IP.
Yeah.
So it's not like you don't have to deal with the legacy of Metal Gear.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just about to say, I really need to catch up on Metal Gear at some point because I still haven't. But this is sort of a nice way to kind of reboot, if you like, if you just want to enjoy Kojima's particular brand of creativity without sort of having to engage with 4, 5, 6 different games beforehand. So, yes, looking forward to it. All right, what's next?
Well, how about all the weird Pokemon stuff? So in our previous episode, we had talked about Nintendo and Dina or DNA. We still don't know what it is. Announcing that they were going to be working on a new Pokemon game. So along with that, we've also got some information on 2 other Pokemon apps that are coming for smartphones. So the Dina game is Pokemon Masters, which is a smartphone game that's going to be celebrating kind of just not just the Pokemon themselves, but also the legendary trainers themselves from throughout the history of like Pokemon narratives.
Which means cute Pokemon girls.
It essentially means an excuse for Pokemon waifu collecting, and I'm super down because we all love Flannery. But alongside that, there's also some classic Nintendo weirdness, mainly something called Pokemon Sleep, which is some kind of app that's gonna track your sleeping patterns with Pokemon, and it's gonna be linked to a new Pokemon Go device that will come out, like an upgraded version. It's like Pokemon Go Plus or whatever, that's going to link to this to track your sleeping patterns, which I thought, I have no idea what this means or who this is for or what it is. I don't think anyone does at this point, but it's kind of cool because it reminds me of back in the day on the Wii. There was all that talk about Nintendo moving towards kind of like lifestyle and biorhythm tracking stuff.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting because I'm sure there was a statement recently where they said that they were officially putting all that stuff on hold, and then this gets announced.
Yeah, so it's weird. So who knows what this is, but most delightful for Pokemon old school fans is that a Pokemon smartphone app called Pokemon Home is coming out, and what Pokemon Home will do is wirelessly bridge the gap between your Switch and your 3DS and your smartphone. So basically, it's going to allow for wireless Pokemon trading between all 3 platforms.
Oh, that's cool.
So you can bring your guys who are on your 3DS Pokemon Bank into Pokemon Sword and Shield when it comes out this fall.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really cool. Cloud-based service for Pokemon trading wirelessly between 3 platforms.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, they're going hard on Pokemon at the moment, aren't they? So
yeah, it's awesome. Give me Pokemon all day, every day.
Alrighty, right. I'm just scrolling through the list of stuff we've got to talk about here. What would you like to bring up next?
What is this Playdate thing? Let's talk about this, because this is bizarro.
Right. Yeah, so I just spotted this the other day, and I just put it in there because I thought it was interesting. So I'm going to have to remind myself what it is while I'm talking about it. It's
it's a handheld console.
Yeah, it's a handheld console. It's by a company called Panic, who are mostly known for making apps, and they published Firewatch is probably the main thing that they're most well known for. They didn't make it; they just published it.
Oh, okay.
So they're sort of big into supporting indie developers in various ways. And the Playdate is this bright yellow handheld console with a black and white screen and a crank. Yeah, so the crank isn't like to wind it up. It's not like a clockwork device or anything. The crank is actually a physical control that's part of the system. And so the games that are being designed for it are intended to sort of make use of this as a unique control system. And the intention behind this system is that you buy the system and then you get a season of indie games included with it that are released at regular intervals. So they've got a bunch of independent developers partnering with them, and over the course of like a year or something, I think they're going to be bringing out new games for this system and delivering them to it, presumably over the internet. And so every so often you'll get a new game to experience on this system, and there's a really interesting mix of people involved with it. So they've got people who are already into weird control systems, like Bennett Foddy, who made Q-Op and various spin-offs. You played Q-Op before?
Oh yeah, many years ago.
Yeah. So Bennett Foddy, if you're not familiar with him, he likes to make games where the control schemes are very specific. So rather than a sort of abstract control scheme that's sort of just like push right to go right, what he does is he makes a control scheme where you're literally controlling the individual limbs and in some cases joints. So Q-Op is his most famous work, in which you're controlling a runner and you're basically controlling like the sort of the thigh and knee joints basically of this runner, and you have to keep him balanced, and it's incredibly difficult, notoriously difficult. But him getting on board with something with an unconventional control scheme is entirely expected. But then we've also got people like Keita Takahashi on board with it as well,
which is awesome.
Yeah, so for those who recognise his name but can't quite place what he's from, he is the guy behind Katamari, basically. So again, a game with an unusual and interesting control scheme, a game which kind of sort of bucks the trends of the sort of conventions of gaming in many ways. He's done lots of really interesting things over the years. And again, give him a handheld console with a crank on it, and I'm sure he'll do something interesting with that. So, I just thought this was a cool little thing. I don't know if it's going to be successful or anything, or if it's just going to be sort of an expensive novelty. But
it's an expensive novelty for sure, and they're it seems like they're making them in extremely limited quantities. Yeah. So it's going to be like you're not going to get one if you don't pre-order it kind of thing.
Yeah, it's sort of the artisanal weasel poo coffee of the indie game space, I think. So you can pre-order it at the moment for $150, and there's going to be 12 games in this first season. So I assume one per month.
A week, I think. I think unlocks. I think you get a new game each week. Yep, 12 new games included, one each week.
Ah, fair enough.
So they just unlock on a time basis.
Yeah. So you can find out a bit more about that on the website play.date. And also, if you have access to Edge magazine, there's a big feature on that in I think that's the latest issue of it, Edge number 333. So if you want to find out a bit more about it,
it is teeny tiny, like it's like the palm of your hand.
Yeah, it's sort of about the size of a floppy disk, a 3.5-inch floppy disk.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll be interested to see some thoughts on that. I mean, I'm probably not going to pick one up, but it's an interesting thing for people to be pursuing, something a bit different and sort of deliberately intended to be kind of sort of rebellious and punky, I think, is what they're going for with it. So
I just love the aesthetic of it. I would buy one just to have it, like with those exposed bolts that go through. Oh, yeah, this is a sexy little piece of hardware. And that D-pad with those rounded edges.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I like. Nice. Me likey.
Alrighty, moving on. So, one relatively small announcement, but will be of interest to readers of MoeGamer, of course, is that Denpasoft has finally released the 18+ version of G-Senjou no Maou, or The Devil on G-String, as it's also known. So this was released probably over a year ago on Steam by Sekai Project, and everyone was like, well, where's the 18+ version? Because normally Denpasoft, who are basically part of Sekai Project, they normally release the 18+ versions either at the same time as the all ages versions or a little bit afterwards. But there was no sign of this. There was just no mention of this anywhere, and so a lot of people didn't pick up the Steam version because they were waiting for this uncut version. And now it's available. So if you pop over to Denpasoft, you can pick that up. It's $45. This is supposed to be one of the all-time greats of visual novels. So there was like the visual novel Reddit a while back. They have sort of an ongoing thread of what they consider to be the best visual novels of all time, sort of voted by the community and so on, sort of the most widely regarded as excellent stuff. And this is always high up there, along with stuff like Grisaya and stuff like that. So if you want sort of a genuine classic, this is well worth pursuing from the sound of things. I don't know a lot about the story. It's something to do with like the main character is the son of a gangster. He likes listening to bark, hence the reference to Air on a G-String in the title. That's about all I know. So all I know is that, and it's supposed to be very good. So do check that out if you're into your visual novels. Moving on, we heard that there is going to be a Nintendo Switch version of Dandy Dungeon: Legend of Brave Yamada very soon, actually. June the 27th, that's supposed to be coming out.
So exciting.
So this was a really cool game that was on mobile before. It's from a company called Onion Games. Who's the guy behind that again? I can never remember his name.
I can never remember his name either. But I love his stuff, and so it drives me crazy that I can't remember his name.
I'm just looking it up now because I feel like I should know it.
Yeah.
Yoshiro Kimura.
There we go. Yeah, Kimura. Yep.
Yeah, so he's made a bunch of games over the years. He's worked on a variety of things. He's worked on stuff like Little King's Story, No More Heroes, Shadows of the Damned, Rule of Rose, Romancing Saga. But then most recently, he's been working on a lot of sort of really creative mobile games. So his sort of most well-known ones are Million Onion Hotel, which I actually downloaded yesterday, but to talk about today, but I haven't actually got around to playing yet. So. Fool on me, I guess. Blackbird was like,
Blackbird's
I think
cool.
one of his, that was one of his more recent ones that I think we talked a bit about in one of the previous news sections. And then Dandy Dungeon. Dandy Dungeon is it kind of markets itself as a sort of roguelike almost, but it's more of a puzzle game really. The concept is that there's this aging, sad Japanese programmer. Is sort of trying to develop his own game because he hates his job, and he sits in his apartment just coding away at his game, and he falls in love with his new neighbour, and he's sort of trying to add his neighbour that he's fallen in love with to this game, and he's gradually expanding the game with new mechanics and all sorts of things like that. And the basic mechanics are sort of drawing lines through dungeons in order to make the most efficient path through them and be able to collect all the items, defeat all the enemies, and complete various objectives. And it was a really cool game on mobile, but it was also a free-to-play game, so you'd reach situations where sort of you might need items to progress, or you might have to pay a bit of money and so on. This new Switch version, this is completely rebuilding it for a standalone release, so there's no microtransactions or anything in it. It's $24.99. And it's got the original content. I don't know if there's new stuff in it. It says it's completely rebalanced for play on consoles, but it doesn't say if there's actually any new content in there. But yeah, this is a really cool game, and it's a nice fit for Switch as well. It's a great handheld game because the levels are so short that you can just pick up and play for a little bit, or you can spend a bit more time with it if you want to. So
yeah, I'll be interested to see how this feels as a complete. I think $25 is a little steep for this game.
That was my first impression for it as well. But
but it's good.
I mean, it was a solid game, and it's got a wonderful aesthetic to it. So it's got wonderful music to it, and didn't the dude speak in sort of like really adorable gibberish as well, a bit like in the Mario and Luigi games? He was sort of
there's lots of that, and there's like humming and stuff as part of the soundtrack.
Yeah,
right. It's like it'll be like just like like there's like dudes doing stuff like that, and it's really charming. It's a cool game. Yeah.
Yes. So watch out for that. That's coming out on June 27th from the sound of things. I assume that's worldwide because the trailer's certainly in English. So yeah, $24.99. So yeah, that must be worldwide, or America at the very least. Okay. Moving on. Square Enix apparently filed a trademark for Collection of Mana in Europe, which has got a lot of people very excited. There's nothing confirmed about this or anything yet, I hasten to add, but so Collection of Mana is already out on Switch in Japan, is that right?
Yes.
I think.
It has been for a long time.
Yeah. So people have been hoping that this would come west in one form or another, because there's great hunger for mana related stuff.
Well, I mean, most importantly, if this happens, it will be possible for the first time ever to legally own an English copy of Seiken Densetsu 3.
Yes.
Which is huge.
Yes.
The need to own an English version of Seiken Densetsu 3 is something that has consumed me for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, this game is unbelievable.
Yeah. So, well, hopefully something comes of this then. So, as I say, it's just a trademark filing at the moment, but it is specifically in Europe, so that kind of suggests a Western release. So, fingers crossed. Don't get your hopes too high because, you might be disappointed, but yeah, it is a distinct possibility.
Unbelievable.
All right. Moving on, Inti Creates and Eggo have confirmed that the second playable character in Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is going to be Zangetsu, who was last seen in Circle of the Moon. I always want to call it like a Castlevania subtitle because it sounds like it's just it is Circle of the Moon, isn't it?
No, Circle of the Moon is one of the Castlevanias.
That is a Castlevania.
Curse of the Moon. Curse of the Moon.
Yes.
Circle of the Moon's the first Castlevania on the GBA, I think.
Yeah, see, I never remember that one because I've told this story before, but that was just called Castlevania over here.
Right.
To confuse everyone.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Zangetsu is in Ritual of the Night. It sounds like he's going to be post-launch content rather than included in the base game, but they've got big plans for stuff that will be launched, sort of launched after the base game is released. So
I'm a little disappointed by that. Not that Zangetsu's playable. Obviously, this is cool as hell, but like, there's a lot of post-launch content and patches and DLC already for this game.
Yeah,
like what are they even launching?
Yeah, I'm a little bit upset about this as well. Most people on the Kickstarter have been whining about not getting a steelbook, but there've been a couple of people, including me, who said, "Well, I would probably rather you'd have released the physical version with all this stuff. That would have been nice." But oh well, it is what it is, I guess. And there's always the possibility of some sort of re-release down the road, I guess. But this is getting a physical release in sort of selected retailers, I think, as well, like Best Buy and various other places. So, but yeah, there is a lot of post-launch stuff. There was mostly the stretch goals from the original campaign. So there's things like a roguelike mode. There is a classic mode where you play it like an old Castlevania rather than a more modern one. So yeah. Zangetsu is going to be in there as part of all that, and he's played by David Hayter, and there's a gloriously cheesy trailer of him being David Hayter. So enjoy that.
They've also teased there is another third playable character coming that they say is going to be a big surprise. Like, everyone's going to be excited about it. I don't know what that means because it's not like this is a series with a fan following because it's a new series, but we'll see what they mean by that. Yep. It'll just be like Alucard with a K or something, and like they'll just change the color of his hair slightly.
Yeah. All right. Stepping sideways to vaguely related stuff. Konami has announced the Contra Anniversary Collection will include Contra Hardcore and Probotector. So if you want Contra that isn't Contra, there you go.
Hey, Probotector's cool.
Yes, yes, it is.
If you've ever enjoyed Contra but thought, what would this look like if all the characters were cool mechs instead of muscly soldier mans, then Probotector's the game for you.
Yeah. So, it seems that this complete collection will include the Famicom version of Contra, the NES version of Contra, Operation C for Game Boy, the Genesis version of Contra Hardcore, Probotector for the Sega Mega Drive, and Super Probotector for the SNES. Alongside that, there's the arcade versions of Contra and Super Contra, Super C on the NES, and Contra 3 for the SNES. So this is a fairly comprehensive collection from the sound of things. Only sort of missing the slightly later ones like the PS2 games. But yeah, so this is due out in summer. There doesn't seem to be a specific date for that yet. It's going to be $20 like the other Konami collections. And judging by the Castlevania collection, which I'll talk a little bit about later, yeah, these should be good conversions as well. So good stuff.
Any opportunity to play hardcore is all right by me, because that game is on fire.
Definitely. All right. A little while back, we had some news about Gust doing a new project, and unsurprisingly, it's a new Atelier game. So this is Atelier Ryza, which has been announced for PS4, followed by Switch and PC, is the wording I've got in the news story here. So it sounds like the PS4 version might come first and then get ported afterwards. Yeah, this looks lovely. The graphics are gorgeous.
Yeah, this is something special. These backgrounds are incredible.
Yeah, and the I read somewhere that the designer specifically had the brief to focus on the thighs of the main character.
Yes.
If you look at the character art, then yeah, those are some good thighs. So the main character, Ryza Stout, presumably shortened to Ryza as in other Atelier games, she is apparently an average girl whose speciality is not having any specialties. She's free-spirited and can be a bit of a tomboy, but she has a strong sense of justice like every JRPG hero, and doesn't easily change her mind when it comes to something she feels is right. Her everyday life changes after a certain encounter. It sounds like the alchemy system in this is going to be completely different to what we had in previous games. And the battle and gathering and synthesis, basically all the systems are going to be completely revamped from the sound of things. The screenshot we've got of what I guess is the crafting system, it looks almost like a sort of tree of ingredients, which is going to be interesting. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for this. Again, I've still got a lot of Atelier games to catch up on. Even now, I've played through all the Ireland games, which I really enjoyed. I've got the Dusk series, the Mysterious series, and I think the Irish series on my shelf as well that I need to play all of. And then there's this one, and then there's Lulawa as well, and then there's Nelky.
Just when you thought you were done with the Ireland series, they fucking went and launched another Ireland game.
But yeah, I'm not going to complain about more Atelier. It is the most comfy series in existence. So anytime you want a bit of a break from things being unpleasant, and just boot up one of those and have a lovely time. Right. What else we got?
No More Heroes. Travis Strikes Again. No longer Switch exclusive. Coming. It is coming to PS4 and PC via Steam. So that's cool. So people who didn't have a Switch. First of all, who doesn't have a Switch? But if you don't have a Switch, you'll be able to play Suda's latest. This game is a lot of fun, so please play it. I'm wondering if there won't be some kind of complete aspect to the other console, like the PS4 and Steam versions, because there was some DLC for the Switch one. So maybe I have a feeling you'll probably get a full buy-in with everything on the PS4 and Steam versions.
That would make sense, wouldn't it? Have they finished releasing additional stuff for it now?
I think because it was like after it came out, it was like one a month for like 2 months or something, and then it was like done, or one every other month. So I think all the content's out for it. So I'm just thinking if there's a PS4 version with physical, I'll probably rebuy it because it'll have everything on disc.
Yeah.
I mean, if you buy the Switch version, you do get a code for all the DLC. If you buy the physical version of the Switch. But, this game is really cool. And I don't think it got talked about nearly as much as it should have.
No, so. I'm going to cover it at some point, but I want to cover it as like a broader, long-term Suda project, because everyone I've spoken to about it has said that you get much more appreciation out of this game if you play all of Suda's previous stuff first.
Yeah, it's definitely like a career tribute.
Yeah, including right back to stuff like the Silver Case and so on as well, because there's even references to that in it. So I picked up both of those on PS4 a little while back because Nisa Europe had a rather attractive sale on them, so I grabbed both of those, which is nice. And then I managed to pick up a copy of Flower, Sun and Rain on DS a while back for a couple of quid as well. So yeah, I'm pretty well tooled up for Suda stuff at the minute. I just need to actually settle down and play some of them.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, just a No More Heroes, like all three No More Heroes, because they're relatively brief games.
Yeah,
like 10-hour games. Like compared to the stuff you're used to covering, you could cover all three No More Heroes and still be like halfway through the month.
Yeah. So that's cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that getting a broader release, and I'm definitely looking forward to covering these as well. Because as I've said before, Suda is still a bit of a black spot in my knowledge, but I know he does a lot of stuff that would appeal greatly to me. So looking forward to exploring that and talking a bit about it as well.
Yeah, the visual novel sections in Travis Strikes Again are delightful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
They have that like framed PC-88 like look to them. It's good stuff.
Lovely.
Yeah. So Star Ocean, the delightful RPG series that everyone thinks is dead and then keeps coming back from the dead, is getting back in the news again. The 2007 PSP remake of the original Super Famicom Star Ocean game, Star Ocean First Departure, is getting a remaster. Star Ocean First Departure R for PS4 and Switch. That's cool. That's cool, because whenever we can support Tri-Ace, we do so.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
This is going to be worth playing.
Yeah. My contact with Star Ocean is mostly limited to the second one and the third one so far.
Sure.
I have the fourth and fifth one, but I haven't played them yet. But yeah, I've always really enjoyed these games, so it's cool to see this version come back. And I know the PSP version is quite well regarded, so
it's great.
Yeah.
Star Ocean is a really interesting series, and Star Ocean 1 is a particularly interesting game because it introduced a really unique skill system and also a cooking mini game, which was something that wasn't really prevalent at the time.
Yes.
It was a bit more of a trendsetter than a lot of people realize.
Yes, I remember that was one thing that struck me about Star Ocean 2, is you had lots of skills that you would normally see in tabletop role-playing games.
Yes.
You had things like sort of writing and composing music and that sort of thing, and developing those would give you all sorts of interesting events that wouldn't otherwise happen, and they didn't tend to have a lot of impact on the actual gameplay itself, but they provided you with more insight into the world and the characters and that sort of thing. So yeah, that was something I really liked about those games. And I can't remember. I don't think that stuff was present in the third one, definitely. I don't know if it's in the later ones, but
yeah, I don't think so either.
It was certainly a very striking thing about Star Ocean 2 as well, which is another one of the PS1 games that I got rid of at some point and subsequently regret.
Yeah, Second Story is a very celebrated game.
Yes. Okay, moving on. Inti Creates is going to be releasing Blaster Master Zero on Steam in June, which is this month. June the 14th, apparently, it's coming out. This is a really, really cool game. Have you played it yet?
No, I haven't. I've just been holding out for a physical version.
Yeah, that would be lovely. But yeah, this is a fantastic game. So it's a combination of kind of a loving remake of the original Blaster Master, but it's also got a bunch of additional stuff in there. Like, there's a lot more story. They make the story make a bit more sense than boy falls down hole chasing frog. I mean, it's still basically boy falls down hole chasing frog, but there is like a point to it now.
Boy falls down hole chasing frog plus.
Yes. There's a cute android girl in it. There is like some extra stages over the original NES version. So the last stage in particular is sort of this beautiful sort of it kind of moves on from the sort of NES aesthetic into sort of kind of PC Engine type aesthetic. So there's like some more colours and stuff, and it's obviously kind of sort of moving on a bit. And it's got some really cool DLC. So there's some DLC with Shantae and Ekoro from Galgun, and I'm sure there's someone else I've forgotten as well. Isn't Gunvolt in there again? Because there was a period where they were putting Gunvolt in everything, wasn't there, I think?
There's some Gunvolt stuff for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, this is a really cool game. Well worth your time, and glad it's getting a wider release, definitely. There is a second Blaster Master Zero game on Switch now, so presumably that will jump across at some point as well. I haven't played the new one yet, but I will look into that because the first one was so good. I really enjoyed it.
I'm hoping that when the second one comes out, then we'll get a double pack like we did with Azure Striker Gunvolt.
Yes. Oh yeah, hadn't thought of that. Yeah, that'd be super cool, wouldn't it?
Oh yes.
Yeah, definitely up for that. I will happily rebuy that if that happens. So definitely. All right, only a couple of things left to talk about. Do you want to talk about Cotton? Because I think you know more about this than I do.
Yeah. So, kind of the quintessential cute 'em up, right? Cute shoot 'em up. Cotton, which is a series that's been around for a long time, but has been dormant for a long time, is coming back. So, Beep, which is a chain of stores that exists in Japan, which is popular for selling retro stuff, is actually starting to branch off into publication. So it's very interesting, and one of the first projects they're going to be working on is a reboot of the original of Cotton, the X68000 version. I don't really know what else to say. Cotton is a lot of fun. It's a really adorable shoot 'em up where you play as a little witch on a broom, and there's a bunch of them, kind of spanning the obviously older Japanese PCs, the arcades. I think most American fans are familiar with the Sega CD version that we actually did get an English version of here.
Is that the one with the cool 3D effect?
I don't remember.
I seem to remember seeing that there's one of the Cotton games has this really awesome 3D effect that sort of shouldn't really have been possible on the hardware, but they managed to do it.
There is one that's like a clone of Space Harrier. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, no, that's not the Sega CD one. The Sega CD one's just like a classic horizontal shooter.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, but there is the one that's like a clone of like Space Harrier with that like 3D style. Rainbow Cotton, I want to say. I think that's the one on the Dreamcast.
Could be. Yeah. Have you seen they're also apparently releasing made-to-order copies of the original X68000 version as well?
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, like, if you want an original floppy disk version of the original Cotton, you will be able to get it. Presumably in very limited quantities. But they are making those to order. So, if you want sort of a really cool collectible, then there it is.
Yeah, so I'm on the fence about what to do about this, because there is going to be a physical version of this, but I think it's going to be exceedingly limited pressing. So hopefully PlayAsia will be able to get their hands on it. This is a really cool series. These games are adorable.
Yeah. I love this artwork. This artwork is like sort of pure 90s anime.
It's delicious. So yeah, Cotton coming back, and hopefully this means more people will care about Cotton again.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think the market's primed for these games. The anime fan community and stuff. It's just perfect. It's a perfect fit for the current landscape.
Definitely. All right. Anything else you want to bring up?
We talked about Blaster Master Zero. It's also exciting because that other Gunvolt game that we both forgot existed now has a launch date.
Ah, yes.
Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger IX launches in September 26 for the PS4, Switch, and PCs. Which is a spin-off title of Inda Creates' Azure Striker Gunvolt, starring the antagonist / also kind of good guy, Koppen. So more Gunvolt, always a good thing. The end.
Yeah, definitely.
This one appears to have a focus on kind of a faster pacing, almost a bit more like playing Zero and Mega Man X, like a lot of dashing and like bouncing around. Looks really, really good. So that'll be worth keeping an eye out for. And one last thing, everyone knows how much I enjoy Mortal Kombat, the new Mortal Kombat. We've got a announcement that the Mortal Kombat 11 DLC pack has finally been confirmed. We are getting, besides Shang Tsung, which we knew we were going to get, we are also getting Nightwolf, Sindel, and Spawn. So the past couple Mortal Kombats have been kind of famous for having guest characters. So Spawn, the comic book character Spawn, is the first new one.
Yeah.
Which is awesome because he's a perfect fit for Mortal Kombat.
Definitely.
With like the chains and the gore and the horror theme around his design. So that'll be cool. I love playing with the guest characters. So and I've always loved Spawn. So this is great. Also, Sindel's my girl. So I'm so excited to see like 4K Sindel. Yeah. So cool. MK11's great. I can't wait to buy it in 2 years when the complete edition comes out.
Yes. The mantra of today, isn't it?
Oh, especially with Warner Brothers published games. Oh my goodness. But they always make good on it. So at least I know. Like, sometimes with this stuff, there's anxiety because I don't know if I'm gonna get a complete version. But like, every single modern Mortal Kombat and Injustice have all, like clockwork, gotten a complete edition. So it's just, to me, these games aren't out yet. When I go to play them at my friend's houses, I'm just playing the beta version.
Yeah, makes sense. Healthy attitude. Also means you don't have to buy as many games all in one go as well. So
there you go.
Which is always a positive these days, especially considering the amount of games that I have bought in like the last 24 hours.
this week alone. This week alone, I got Crystal Crisis, Lapis Labyrinth, and Fangamer shipped my copy of Hollow Knight. So nice. I came home from work yesterday to 3 games on my counter.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? Oh, wait, play video games all weekend. The end.
Sweet. Yes. Yeah, June is a very strong month. So I had Kotodama come in yesterday, which I haven't had a chance to try yet. There is World End Syndrome, which is another visual novel. I think Arc System Works have got something to do with that, so that looks cool. Then there's Mario Maker 2 at the end of the month, and oh god, so much cool stuff.
Yes. Tuesday in the US is Legend of Heroes 2. Tears of Cold Steel 2 on the PS4 remaster.
Nice.
So, haven't played the first one yet, but I'm sure as shit getting 2 as well. And then pre-ordering 3 because Falcom for life.
Yep.
God, what else is coming out this month that's insane? I know Limited Run has something next Friday that I'm like losing my mind over. And I can't remember what it is now. Anyway, that's it's all good. Nothing to Games.
Yeah, those visual novels that Limited Run put up, they just went. Although, oddly enough, there's still some copies of the PS4 version of The House in Fata Morgana available at the time of recording. So if you missed out on a version of that, then there are still some of those available as I record this, but they probably won't last for long. So watch out for that. All right. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just it's bothering me that I can't remember what the game I'm excited for next week is. Oh, well. Not important. I'll rave about it next week.
Oh, is it Momodora?
It is Momodora. Yes, it is the Switch. It is the Switch version of Momodora, Reverie in the Moonlight. Those are great games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I shall look forward to not being able to order that.
Oh, yeah. What are they going to do with us, Pete?
Ah, God, I don't know. Take all our money.
Well, they've been doing that.
Yes, they are. All right, I think we're done with the news for now, so let's take a short break and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what we've been playing lately. So, see you in just a moment. Welcome back. For our second segment, we like to talk about what we've been playing recently. So, what have you been up to lately, Chris?
I have been playing Warriors All-Stars.
Ah, tell me about this.
Yes.
I'm very curious about it.
Yes, because I think, surprise, Warriors All-Stars did not get talked about in the right context.
You don't say.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone was like, oh, it's just another Warriors game. There's nothing special about it. There's so much special about it, Pete. There's so much special about it. So
tell me.
So remember when Hyrule Warriors came out? And everyone was like, and I'm talking about when it first came out on the Wii U, and everyone raved about it. And I was like, I hate all of you because you only like this because of Zelda. Like, I was like, this is a genuinely good game, but all you critics are finally just like, oh, I never took the time to look at Musou games before. This is actually great. All these mechanics are great. And I was like, shut up, all of you. You don't even get to talk about this game because you just like it because it's Zelda. Like, well, you and me like it for both reasons, because it's a really, really good Musou game and a really, really good Zelda game. But what was cool about Hyrule Warriors is the extent that it took the Musou formula to, by adding like all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So besides the classic, like loads of characters to develop and items to collect and power up, there was this really cool adventure mode with a map. and the map had varying challenges. So it didn't just create this standard, like, there weren't just Musou stages. There weren't just, like, capture the enemy base, defeat the enemy commander, and deal with tactical things that are happening on the battlefield stages. There were also, like, all enemies and you die in one-hit stages, or accomplish this goal in this amount of time stages, and, like, different rule sets that mixed up the way Musou played. So different characters were better suited to certain challenges, etc., etc., etc. Guess what Warriors All-Stars is? Warriors All-Stars is Omega Force took all the stuff from Hyrule Warriors, said this can't be in another Musou, we can't put Hyrule Warriors on PS4 and other consoles, so they made Hyrule Warriors for other consoles and just skinned it with classic characters from Koei Tecmo. Like, it's Hyrule Warriors.
Well, I'm on board.
It's Hyrule Warriors, just with Koei Tecmo characters, and Dead or Alive girls, and Ryu, Opuna, and Ryu from Ninja Gaiden, and Arnis from Knights of Azure.
Yeah.
And there's one of the Atelier girls is in there. I'm currently playing the campaign for the Tokiden, because I love Tokiden.
Yeah.
But it's totally just Hyrule Warriors. There's a map screen with icons that pop up with different style challenges. And you work your way through the goofy original story, but then other challenges come up that let you recruit characters or collect materials to craft and power your characters up with. It's just massive and varied and a ton of fun.
Excellent. So glad to hear that that's good, because I've been looking forward to trying that. I think probably when I get to the end of my Warriors Orochi playthrough on YouTube, I'm probably going to switch over to that for a bit of a change, because I know Warriors Orochi 2 is very similar to the first one, so I was thinking I'll probably switch over to that for a bit to have a bit of a change. I'm really excited to give this a go now.
Also, I think there's a lot more playable characters in it than, like, the Wikipedia entries and marketing lead you to believe.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because when I looked at the lists of playable characters, it turns out that the playable characters that are listed online I see everywhere are just the playable characters that you pick the campaign for.
Right.
So, like, I picked the girl from Tokiden, and I instantly got 2 other Tokiden characters to play as, and I didn't see their names on any of the lists.
Oh, okay.
And then I played it for like an hour, and then I recruited this dude who I think is from Knights of Azure.
Yeah.
And he was not on any of the lists either.
Right.
But fully playable.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think it's bigger than people gave it credit for. This is a really cool game. It's like, basically, it's what if you had a Musou RPG.
Yeah.
Because it's got a story mode, and you have a hub that you actually go to like work on your crafting and stuff, and you can get side missions that are character focused and stuff. Like, you get missions from your other characters, and it's like, all right, I need you to beat a level without using your Musou gauge. You get these challenges that you can also attempt within the stages. It's cool. The only thing I don't like about it is there's no weapons.
Oh, okay.
And, like, collecting weapons is, like, super Musou Addiction 9000 for me.
Yeah.
But what there is there's trading cards.
Oh, okay.
So every character gets trading cards that have attributes associated with them. And in the same way as, like, forging weapons and stuff, you can break the cards you get down from materials, use materials you've collected to upgrade the cards you have, put new abilities on them. So you equip cards instead of weapons. It just makes me sad because it doesn't change the appearance of the character at all.
Yeah.
There's no new weapon models because there's no new weapons.
Yeah.
But I understand why they did that, because characters like Marie Rose and Honoka from Dead or Alive don't have weapons.
Oh, so they're straight hand-to-hand, are they?
Yeah, so, like, how would you represent something like that on them? So, like, it doesn't make sense for... Weapons don't make sense for every character. So, I guess that's why.
This game has Nobunaga Oda from Samurai Cats in it.
Yes, it does.
Fantastic.
And he's one of the campaign characters, so you can, like, pick him. He has a campaign.
Amazing.
Yes, this game is cool. Weird and radically, because like, when I first was reading about this game, you'll recall, I was like not even super excited for it because I was like, how is this really any different from Warriors Arachi?
Yeah.
I didn't understand what made it unique. But now I do, because the campaign is structured so radically different from any other Musou game I've played, because it has this kind of RPG twist to it.
Yeah.
It's totally something special. I just picked it up for a song because I was like, I like Musou games. This is on sale for $15. I'll just grab it to have it. I had no idea how much I was going to enjoy this.
Oh, great. Well, looking forward to trying it out for myself then, because I'm getting towards the end of the Shu campaign on Warriors Arachi at the minute, which means I've just got the Wei campaign left to do. Then I can play something else.
Sweet.
Yeah. I'm definitely interested in exploring the rest of Warriors Arachi at some point. But yeah, taking a sidestep into that will be a nice change, I think.
No, I think you'll enjoy it. It's uniquely primed to tickle all your pleasure centers.
It very much sounds that way. So, yeah, cool. All right. Anything else you've been up to?
Yes, I've been playing Crystal Crisis, but since we're going to talk about puzzle games in our third section, I'll hang on to that, and we'll dissect that more when we talk about those.
Alrighty. Anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much it for me.
Okay, good stuff. I got a couple of things I want to talk about. First one is the Konami Castlevania collection. Which I picked up on Switch, which is lovely. Absolutely lovely. I've only really played some Castlevania 1 from that so far, and I had a brief look at Castlevania 2. But I've been spending most of my time on the first Castlevania up until now, so really enjoying that. Wrote a few articles about it, and it's very interesting to revisit these games from a modern perspective and just see how much these games have been drawn upon by a whole bunch of places that you might not expect at first glance. So, like, yeah, I mean, we've had this discussion off mic before, but yeah, you can probably trace a line from early Castlevanias to stuff like Dark Souls today.
Yes,
in terms of sort of technical combat, focus on movement, weight, that sort of thing. Yeah, very strong focus on that, and that's only really become clear to me in this playthrough now, and sort of being more familiar with a lot of modern games. It's like it's sort of past attempts to play Castlevania were like, oh, this is the game with the weird jumping. But yeah, I've been enjoying it. I still haven't finished it yet because I can't get past the fifth block at all. But yeah, I'm enjoying banging my head against it repeatedly, and looking forward to trying some of the other games in that. The collection by M2 is just an absolutely gorgeous collection of ports. They are flawless, right down to the original flaws from the NES version. So like you got your flickering sprites and stuff and that kind of thing. You can display it in several different ways. So you can display it in sort of pixel perfect or exact 4:3, or you can stretch it to 16:9 if you're weird.
Who would do that?
I don't
what
know.
Kind of what kind of monster? It's like, don't even give people the tools to make like.
Yeah, there are some scan line filters as well for those who like that sort of thing. I personally don't, but the option is there if you do like that kind of thing as well. I think there's like 3 different things you can do with scan line filters as well. Yeah, there's full save and load states in there as well, so you can either use those to sort of just save your progress rather than having to start from the beginning each time, which is what I'm doing, rather than save scumming my way through it, because I have a certain amount of pride. You know, I don't like to save scum my way through old games. I know a lot of people do shamelessly these days, but no, I'm just saving when I want to walk away from it for a bit and just pick up where I left off. And it's good that the option's there for that, especially for games like Castlevania 2 in particular, where otherwise you'd have to rely on a rather cumbersome password system.
Yeah, Castlevania 2 is all kinds of interesting.
Yeah, great music, great music.
Oh yeah, the opening theme in that first town is called "The Silence of Daylight," and it's one of my all-time favorite Castlevania tracks. It's one that I always get sad that, you know, there's a really big like official remix culture for Castlevania, like old tracks making appearances in new games, and like I always get sad that Silence of Daylight is one that doesn't get remixed more often, because I think it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to be exploring Castlevania 2 a bit in some articles over the next couple of weeks or so. I don't know if I'll play it all the way through. It depends how much patience I have for it. But,
you won't. It's painful.
I don't know. I've kind of enjoyed what I've played so far, but yeah, that may well change. But yeah, anyway, anyone who's been kind of on the fence about picking this collection up, don't hesitate because it's wonderful. I mean, it'll be lovely to have a physical collection of it, and I mean, we may not rule that out at some point.
Well, I think
really cool. What would be really cool would be if Konami took all 3 of these anniversary collections they were doing and go, here you go, here's all of them on a disc. Or
bingo. That's what I think's going to happen. They'd be stupid not to. They know what the fans want.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they're Konami, maybe they don't. But seriously, all 3 of these on one disc, I would pay upwards of $60 for that if I could, especially if it was in like a nice steel case or something, or came with a cool bonus.
If they gave it like the SNK anniversary collection treatment, so
yeah,
that came with like a soundtrack CD and an art book and like really, I mean, it was just a cardboard box, but it was really nice design on the cardboard box for that as well. So yeah, if they just did something like that, I'd be happy. That would be really nice. But as you say, it's Konami; they might not do what is the sensible thing.
yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. I'm also still holding out hope that there will be some sort of second Castlevania compilation as well that includes the later games.
Oh, they said there will be.
They've actually confirmed that.
They haven't confirmed what's gonna be on it, but they have said there is going to be they have said this is like the first collection.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, so we don't know what's gonna be on the other one. I still don't know what the hell it could be because I don't see the Nintendo stuff coming. Or let me rephrase that. I would find it very difficult to see the DS stuff making sense.
Well, I mean, my experience with those ones is limited, but do they make extensive use of both screens?
The first one does. It has like you can't even beat the bosses with you have to use the touch screen to etch runes into the touch screen to defeat the bosses. And the other ones I don't really remember, but theoretically the Game Boy Advance ones could translate over without issue. The Super Nintendo version of Dracula X, it would be nice to have archived. And like the later stuff would be cool too. Like people are down on the PS2 era games, but I love them, and especially with the prevalence of Hector as an important character in season 2 of the animated series. I think having Curse of Darkness readily accessible on modern consoles would be very nice. So there's some interesting stuff. Oh, the 64 ones would be cool, especially the one where you're the werewolf. I really
like those games.
Yeah, they're cool games.
They're pretty widely hated from what I can make out, but yeah, I really enjoyed those games when I played them when they came out. But yeah, they seem to be a bit forgotten about these days. But
so I don't see the DS ones happening, but there's still plenty of other stuff to build another collection out of.
Yeah, I mean, there's what is it 2 or 3 on GBA? I think there's 2, isn't it?
There's 3. Then, so it's
3.
Circle of the Moon. Oh shit. I can have the second one on the GBA. I always remember the Japanese subtitle of it because it's cooler, because it's White Knight Concerto, and that's not what it was called here. And then there's the first one in the Soma Cruise series.
Yeah. That's Harmony of Dissonance, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, or Aria of Sorrow. Which one is it? Dawn of Sorrow is the DS one. Aria of Sorrow is the last one on GBA, and that's a great game. Dawn of Sorrow is the sequel on the DS. Dawn of Sorrow is my favorite Castlevania game. Period.
Oh, okay.
Period. Cool. But Aria is a great game too. What's cool about Aria and Dawn is that they have Pokemon-inspired collection mechanics for the abilities.
Yeah.
So you kill enemies and you capture their powers to use as abilities. And it's really addictive to collect them and level up the different abilities. I love those games. The Dawn of Sorrow on the DS is my favorite because once you beat it, you unlock a special mode where it's a tribute to Castlevania 3.
Oh, nice.
So you'll get there because you're playing that old school collection, but Castlevania 3's whole deal is there's different characters you recruit throughout the game. So like you in Castlevania 3 you pick different routes, and depending on which route you go through, you either recruit Grant, who's like a thief who's fast and uses knives. Sypha, who's a magician. Or Sypha. I think we're saying it's Sypha now, thanks to the animated series. Sypha, who's a mage, or Alucard, who everyone knows who Alucard is.
Yeah.
If you beat Dawn of Sorrow, you unlock Julius mode, which lets you play through it as like the Belmont from that story, Julius Belmont. And then you also have like a descendant of Sypha and Alucard. And you can, and that you have a button and you can switch between them.
Nice.
So you can play through the whole game in that Castlevania 3 tribute mode, which is really cool.
Cool. Yeah, one to watch out for. Those ones are expensive as fuck these days.
Are they?
Yes, they are over here, certainly.
Castlevania, and Castlevania.
They did actually start putting subtitles on after that first GBA one. The first PS2 one, they didn't put a subtitle on either. That's also called Castlevania. But then the second PS2 one, they did put... That's Curse of Darkness, isn't it? The second one, I think?
Yeah, Curse of Darkness is the one with Hector. That's the second one on the PS2.
Yeah, so Curse of Darkness was called Castlevania Curse of Darkness, but the first PS2 one was just called Castlevania.
That's Lament of Innocence in the West.
Yes.
All right, in the US.
Yeah.
Those are canonized now. The animated series has canonized those.
That's cool, yeah. I was actually reading up on Castlevania canon the other day, and from what I could see, the only one that they seem to have stripped out of canon is Circle of the Moon. Which,
it doesn't fit anywhere anyway.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because it's a really cool game. Everyone hates it, surprise. But it's really cool, because the mechanics of that game, you collect tarot cards.
Yes.
And the combinations of tarot cards you equip affect your whip. So it's like you don't collect weapons, you always have the whip. But if you equip like the tarot card that's like the rose with thorns on it, you get a plant whip with thorns on it that like makes vines sprout up. So what you equip affects your attacks in radical ways. I think nobody liked it because it didn't handle like Symphony of the Night. It handled like an old Castlevania. Yeah. Like the guy moved kind of chunky. Yes. But I loved it. I loved it so much. So
yeah. Cool. Well, let's hope at least some of these get a second chance in the sun with a new collection then. So I'll be eagerly waiting some more information on that. But anyway, in the meantime, the Castlevania Anniversary Collection is fantastic. So do pick that up if you are fancying it. The second thing I've been playing is Team Sonic Racing, which is lovely. Yeah. Lovely. We talked a bit about it before, but I was a little concerned beforehand that the dropping the Sega All-Stars part of it would lose something for it.
We were both concerned about that.
Nothing to worry about there. There is more than enough cool stuff in Sonic to hold together a cool and interesting and diverse racing game with lots of different environments, lots of different settings, various kinds of tracks, and it's just a ton of fun. And the main single-player adventure mode really builds on what Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed does. So it's got its node-based map and sort of different routes you can take and sort of bonus stages and all that kind of thing. But the difference is that they've added a story to it. It's an utterly stupid story, but it's Sonic, so it's sort of held together with this wonderful cheesy charm and lots of stupid one-liners and Sonic being a dick. And,
oh, Sonic.
Yeah. Most of the story is like most of Sonic's friends going, we should probably be a bit careful around this mysterious guy who's pulled us into another dimensions of race cars for unclear purposes. And Sonic's like, I want to race, I want to go fast. And,
Whatever.
But there's a nice mix of different events in there. So it's got some of the sort of time trial type events that you had in Transformed. So there's the traffic attack one where you have to overtake lots of things and break checkpoints that are moving. There's one where you have to skim past gates in a sort of slalom type thing to get points for. There's one where you have to get rings, and if you drift through the rings, then you get more time and that sort of thing. So there's it tests your skills in lots of different ways besides just the races. And the team play stuff is really interesting. I wasn't sure how that was going to work, particularly in single player, but it works really well. So the reason it works so well is that they've kept it reasonably simple. So there's sort of just a few basic mechanics added on top of the standard racing formula. So one of the main things is that of your team, whoever's in the lead, they leave like a sparkling trail behind them, and your other two teammates can sit in that sparkling trail, and the longer they sit in it, the more they charge up a slingshot slipstream boost.
Oh, that's really cool.
So they can follow along behind you a bit and then just sort of zip past you. And because they're your teammate, it doesn't matter if they're ahead of you, because as long as one of you is coming in first place, then you're going to get the maximum points. So there's that one. There's a thing called a skim boost, where if one of your teammates crashes or gets hit by an item, if you skim past them really quickly, you basically sort of... I think it's sort of implied that you're sort of slapping them back into motion as you go past them, and it lets them build their speed up much more quickly. And then you can pass item boxes between you as well. So if you get an item that isn't particularly useful for you, you can pass it to one of your teammates.
I like that.
Yeah. So all three of those things, they charge up an ultimate meter. So like the more you are playing as a team, the more you charge up this meter. And when that meter's full, you can fire it off and you get a massive speed boost and temporary invincibility for a little while. So sort of trying to race well at the same time as supporting your team to charge this up is really important, because it's because the other teams in the race are also doing this as well. And if they set one of these off and you don't, then they're probably going to get ahead of you. So it kind of gives just enough of a twist on the usual racing formula to make it feel a little bit different from your average kart racer. I'm really enjoying it so far. And it's cool. Lots of customization options.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about the way they're implemented, because they're implemented via a sort of loot box system, but it's not a microtransaction powered one. So you earn credits for every race. You get a score for every race based on your performance and sort of particular things and how well you've played as a team, and that then gets converted into these coins. And you can spend 10 coins to get a capsule that has something in it, and that capsule can either have a consumable item that you can start the race with, or it'll provide a part for one of the character's things. But there's no control over what you get, so you might get parts for a character that you're not playing much as. It does seem to have sort of naturally favoured the characters that I have been playing as, so I don't know if there is some sort of algorithm in there that makes it more likely that you'll get stuff for characters you've been using a lot. But certainly, like I played a lot of the early game as Sonic, for example, and like the first bunch of these pods that I got, pretty much everything I got was for Sonic. So I kind of have a feeling that there is something in there that says, oh, this guy's been playing a lot of Sonic, we should probably give him some Sonic parts. And what these parts do is they allow you to just sort of tweak the performance of that particular character just slightly. So none of them are obviously better than the others, which is nice. So it's not like you're dependent on these parts to success. It just allows you to kind of customize how they handle a little bit slightly. So if you prefer Sonic to handle a bit better, for example, you can just like swap out his tires, and that will give him a slight hit to his top speed, but a slight boost to his handling. So nothing is going to make him better than the other characters. There's no sort of, I don't want to call it pay to win, because you're not actually paying anything, but there's no sort of you need this item in order to progress. It just allows you to customize. And then on top of that, there is a visual customization element to it as well. So all of the characters, you can repaint their cars. And the way that works, rather than doing it completely freely, you have you choose a basic color scheme for them. And that comes with 4 colors. And then you pick different bits of the car and you choose one of these 4 colors for them. So you basically end up with something that is vaguely coordinated, but the exact implementation of that color scheme is up to you.
Oh, neat.
And then a nice touch on top of that is each of those parts that you paint, you can choose what material it's made out of. So you can have it as like sort of flat matte plastic, or you can have it as shiny metal, or you can have it as brushed metal, or like stippled metal and that kind of thing. So you can really sort of customize how the different cars appear. And there's various vinyls you can collect as you go through as well, that you apply to the sides. They're not like sort of 3D combinable or anything, they're just preset patterns. But again, you can recolor those in different ways. You can choose what materials the different parts of it are made out of. So yeah, you can kind of really make each of the characters your own if you want to.
I love it. So
yeah, there's a lot to this game. The single player mode is pretty substantial. It's kind of been marketed as almost a tutorial for people, but I think that's kind of selling it short, really, because it's a really substantial campaign with a lot of races in it. I think there's like something like 174 stars to collect, and you normally get like maybe 2 or 3 per race.
Oh wow!
So there's a lot of stuff to do in there. Lots of hidden content to unlock. Lots of optional objectives to do as well, which reward you with keys, which in turn will unlock usually additional customization parts for you as well. So yeah, there is a ton to this game, and as with most of the previous Sonic racing games, it seems particularly geared for single players. So if you enjoy sort of arcadey kart racing, but you don't have easy access to a lot of friends to play with, or you don't want to play online, then yeah, this is a really good choice. And I'm playing the Switch version. It performs really well. It's 30 frames per second instead of 60 for those who care about such things. I don't. But certainly the graphical detail is equivalent between the different platforms. So it looks great, it runs great, it plays great. So yeah, well worth the wait, I'd say.
I was going to get the Switch version, and then I read today that there's like stuff cut from the Switch version.
Oh, really?
The PS4 version has an opening cinematic, and the Switch version doesn't, just for storage space concerns. So
that's weird.
From an archiving perspective, I think the PS4 version is probably the most complete version.
Yeah, probably. That's a shame.
Yeah, but I thought that was really weird. Like, how much does an opening cinematic? Like, I just assume it's just a movie, right? Like, I don't understand, but
yeah,
it's a dumb little thing. But I like to have everything.
Yeah, no, I understand completely. But yeah, I can't say I missed it from its absence. But I mean, I haven't seen it, so
yeah.
Whatever.
Well, it's one of those things where if I hadn't known about it, I wouldn't have missed it at all. But now I know about it. I'm like, I have to have the version that has it, so I can watch it once and then skip it every other time I boot it up.
Yeah.
But like, yeah.
Oh well. Yeah, and the only other stuff I've been playing is I've been continuing with Our World Is Ended, but I've written about that in great detail over on MoeGamer.net at the minute, so I won't talk too much about that now. But yeah, that is proving to be a really cool visual novel. So if you're into your kind of speculative, cautionary sci-fi, then this is a really cool story to explore, particularly if you're interested in the idea of things like virtual reality, augmented reality, and the idea of preserving memories and souls and personalities in the virtual realm as well. Yeah, it's got some really interesting concepts in there. So we'll hopefully be coming to the end of that in the next week or so. So there's probably one more article in that for me before I probably going to take a slight break from in-depth features for the rest of June, because I'm going on holiday in the last week. So we'll be back to full-scale features after that. But in the meantime, there's more Our World Is Ended to come, and of course all the other usual stuff as well. All right, anything else you want to mention?
Nope, that's it for me.
Good stuff. All right, let's take a break then, and then we'll get into our puzzle game talk. So, see you in a moment. Welcome back. For our third segment today, we wanted to talk about puzzle games, just because that's sort of a nice, comfy topic that we both enjoy talking about, and we both enjoy playing that kind of game. We're going to particularly focus on more sort of arcadey style puzzle games today, so things like drop puzzlers, swap puzzlers, that kind of thing. So we're not going to be getting into sort of things with more sort of adventure gamey type elements like escape rooms and that kind of thing. Mostly focusing on arcadey type things.
What I would call the children of Tetris.
yes, that makes sense. So not exclusively drop puzzlers by any means, but all of the kind of things that kind of use that same skill set and that same kind of engaging that part of your brain.
Basically, spatial awareness. The games that present you with a confined space. It's usually a rectangle or a square.
Yep.
It fills with something, and either by arranging shape or matching color or matching design, your goal is to manage that space effectively. That's kind of the core of these kind of games that I want to talk about.
Yes, definitely. I'm going to set myself a personal mission. I'm not going to use the word weird to refer to any of these games.
I will fail at doing that, so I will not make that promise. But I think your goal is admirable, and I support it.
Yes. So, I mean, hard to know where to start, really. I kind of want to focus on stuff that doesn't get talked about quite so much, but
yeah,
I think it's obviously worth acknowledging the greats of the genre. So it's obviously worth acknowledging stuff like Tetris and so on. So, I'm trying to think what my first encounter with this kind of game would have been, and I actually don't think it was Tetris. I think it was probably Klax.
Oh yeah, Klax is awesome.
Yeah, so Klax, if you're unfamiliar, was an Atari Games joint from, I can't remember what year, but sort of early 90s, because the tagline was, "It is the 90s and there is time for Klax." In Klax, you had this weird sort of slot. I've used the word weird already. I failed.
That's good.
Right, no more.
Now you can enjoy yourself. You failed, now the reins are off.
Utter failure. Right. Anyway, so in Klax you have this this kind of slot machine type thing down which there are coloured blocks of rolling towards you in a kind of 3D perspective. You have to catch them on a paddle, which can move left and right. I think there's 5 lanes altogether. And your aim is to create Klaxes. And Klaxes are groups of 3 colours or more in either a horizontal, a vertical, or a diagonal row. And the interesting thing about Klax, when compared to some of the other games we're going to talk about today, is Klax is entirely objective based. So rather than being a kind of marathon puzzler where you just have to survive as long as possible, Klax is split into discrete stages, and between each stage it wipes the board clean and you start again each time. So in the early levels it just says something like make 3 Klaxes, and that's easy enough because you can do vertical, horizontal, or diagonal ones. But by the time you get to about the 4th or 5th stage, it's starting to require you to do things like specifically make diagonal ones, or specifically get at least one Klax that has got 4 or 5 in it. Or there's some really interesting stages where rather than making a certain number of Klaxes, you just have to survive a certain number of tiles coming towards you. And so it really mixed up the objectives as you go through. And for me, that's what made it interesting. That's what made it feel like you were sort of progressing each time. It wasn't about high scores. It was about how far you could get. And I played 2 versions of Klax in my kind of early puzzle game life. First of all was the Atari ST version, which is a pretty solid arcade conversion. I've actually covered it on Atari ST A to Z on YouTube, so check out that video if you want to see how that version plays. The main weakness in that version is the sound effects, which I was completely unaware of the sound effects at that point because I'd never seen the arcade version. But then I got an Atari Lynx, and Klax was kind of the killer app for the Atari Lynx.
Yeah.
Because it was a pretty much arcade perfect conversion. It even went so far as to be one of the few games that used the Lynx in a vertical orientation, which was tremendously uncomfortable on the original Lynx because of its size, but on the Lynx 2 it was reasonably practical. But yeah, it meant you had a vertical screen for that sort of authentic arcade-like experience. And the Lynx version had all the sound effects from the original arcade games, so it had sort of like digitized applause and speech and all sorts of things, and yeah, it was a fantastic conversion, and I have very fond memories of it because it's one of those games that most of the members of my family like playing at one point or another. So I would play it, my mum would play it. My mum beat it before me, which is my eternal shame. But yeah, my mum got to level 100 and beat it and saw the ending before I did.
Let's just get this out of the way. Moms love puzzle games.
Yes.
Because my mom also... Like, if I was ever playing a game in my youth and it was a puzzle game, my mom would do like a Bugs Bunny Looney Tunes, like screeching halt, like right in, like walking behind the TV and like immediately stop whatever she was doing to like hand my ass to me. Yeah. Like, moms love puzzle games.
Yeah. No, it's a running joke in my family because none of the Davison males are particularly good at packing in particular.
Oh.
So like if we have to load the boot of a car with suitcases and stuff like that, my dad will just get the suitcase and he'll put it in the middle and then he'll try and sort of pack stuff around it. And my mum will always get furious with him for that. But yeah, so the running joke in our family is that my mum is good at Tetris because it's just packing, or possibly vice versa.
Yeah, and that's always the joke with me and my friends is like whenever I have a friend that moves, they're always like on me right away. Like, Chris, we need your Tetris skills. I just have like a million emails. Cause like I get it. I'm on the same wavelength as your mom. I'm like the master of packing and packing cars and spaces.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So yeah, I think Klax was my first encounter with it. Can you remember what you first encountered in terms of puzzle games?
It was definitely Tetris. But Tetris wasn't like my first obsession. That's Yoshi.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think was called Mario and Yoshi in your territory. So it was a puzzle game for the Nintendo. By Nintendo. Actually, it was by Game Freak. It was by the Pokemon people. Published by Nintendo. So all the pieces, all the blocks were like the classic Mario enemies. There's a Goomba, a Boo, Piranha Plant, and the what are the squids? Bloopers.
Yeah.
So like you could so the way Yoshi played was you had Mario on the bottom and he had a tray in each hand, and he would turn clockwise or counterclockwise depending on which button you pressed. And what that would do was it would actually rotate the entire column.
Yeah.
So you didn't control the way the blocks fell. The blocks just fell where they wanted to fall. Your job was to rotate the columns in order to make the blocks fall on the stack that you wanted it to fall on. You were managing these stacks.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not that different from Klax, now that I think about it. But, so you could match up 3 tiles of the same enemies to make them disappear, obviously, which helped with spatial management to ensure that stuff didn't clear, to ensure that your screen didn't fill up, you didn't get game over. But like the real way to kill it in Yoshi was, besides the 4 different enemy type tiles, there were Yoshi egg tiles.
Yeah.
So there's a top egg half, and a bottom egg half. So the idea is, if you put a bottom egg, an egg bottom half, on a stack, then you put enemy tiles on top of that egg bottom, then eventually you would get an egg top. You cap that off like a sandwich. Then the egg collapses in on itself, makes this exceedingly satisfying sound effect. The egg top and bottom join, and depending on how many enemy tiles you trapped in that egg, you hatch a Yoshi.
Yeah.
And the size and maturity of the Yoshi is dependent on how many enemy tiles you trapped in that egg. And they make like the Yoshi sound when they hatch, and there's a cute little animation, and I scream, and it's great. But what's cool from a mechanical perspective is, right, generally in the puzzle games, you're trained to match, right? To free that space and clear things, which is part of what you're doing in Yoshi. But if you're trying to fill an egg, you have to be careful not to match.
Yeah. Because
you don't want that stack to dissipate. You want that stack to grow and grow and grow, so you can hatch a bigger Yoshi and get a bigger points bonus. So there's just something about like the bright Nintendo aesthetic of it, and the music, and the fact that I love Yoshi, and I would play this game just for hours as a kid. Just hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, it's fun and a bit unusual. I actually played this for the first time this morning, in fact, because it's on the Switch NES app as one of the games.
Perfect.
I thought, I'll give that a go. So I was quite surprised at how different it was to kind of any other puzzle game that I've played before. It's a very cool game. It doesn't seem like it was particularly well received by a lot of people, but I mean, no change there, right?
Oh no.
But it's a fun game worth a try for sort of a different twist on the usual falling block formula. And as you say, the graphics and presentation are just lovely. It was quite a late era NES game, I think that one, wasn't it?
Yeah, very near the end of things.
Early 90s. So they've kind of really got their head round presentation at that point. But definitely worth a look. I think probably the sort of main era of games I'll certainly be talking about today is the PS1 era, which, looking back at my collection of games, was probably kind of the golden era of this game for me anyway.
Yeah, I think it largely was. I mean, to be fair.
So back in the PS1 era, we were still at a point where you could put out a puzzle game as a full price game and people would buy it.
Exactly.
Which is, I mean, it still happens today because people bought Puyo Puyo Tetris and stuff like that. But puzzle games are kind of almost seen as almost lesser value these days. They're the kind of things that people on Steam reviews would say, "Oh, you know, if this was $10, I'd buy it," but whatever. Shut up.
Yeah. Eat a butt, as I would.
Eat a butt. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I have a stack of stuff in front of me that I want to talk about. I guess I'll just work my way down it then. So, first one I've got on my stack is Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo.
Yeah, this is the game. Game.
I can't work out if I love or fucking hate this game because it is so difficult for me. I don't know if it's difficult or if it's just difficult for me, but I have real trouble with this game.
Really?
Yeah, like. So for those who don't know the game, Puzzle Fighter is it's a falling block puzzler. You get pairs of gems. There are coloured gems that drop down, and there's kind of a two-step process to get rid of them. So you have to drop coloured gems so that they're touching each other, either sideways or up and down. And then you get these crash gems, which are sort of sparkling orbs. You drop a crash gem of the same colour on a group of gems, and all the gems that are touching will be destroyed. And it's a competitive puzzler, so, as you might expect from the Street Fighter theme. And so the more of these gems you bash at the same time, the more garbage you'll send over to your opponent on the other side. And you can basically multiply the amount of garbage you send to your opponents by making square or rectangular power gems of the same colour. So like if you put 4 red gems together, they will combine into a larger power gem, and if you break that, it's worth more than if you just broke 4 gems individually. And so a key part of the strategy of Puzzle Fighter is setting up these groups of gems so you can make these power gems, and also setting off combinations as well, so that like you break some gems and then some more crash orbs pop down on top of the other ones and that sort of thing. And so I don't really know why I have such difficulty with this, because it's a pretty simple concept. But just anytime I play either the computer or a friend at this, I tend to get absolutely flattened. I used to live with a girl while I was sort of just out of university. I lived with someone, my housemate, and she really liked this game. And it got to a point where I just couldn't play it with her anymore, just because she would absolutely ass blast me every time I played it. But it is a great game. It looks great. It sounds great. It's fun to play. The PS1 port is really good. There's a lot of extra content over the arcade original. There's actually more content in the PS1 version than there is on the slightly more recent HD remix version that they did on Xbox 360. So if you have access to the PS1 version, that's well worth picking up. And it's got these adorably chibi versions of Street Fighter and Darkstalkers characters in it as well.
Bingo.
Which, the importance of that cannot be underestimated.
No. Chibi Felicia is my heart.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't. I can't even function.
Yeah.
This game to me is like quintessential PS1 era Capcom.
Yes, definitely.
It's just like this is the aesthetic that I prize.
Yeah.
Just everything about Puzzle Fighter 2. The sound the gems make when they break.
Oh, it's so good, isn't it?
Is coded into my brain. And like
it's a combination of things. You remember how I talked last time about the sort of mild synesthesia I get from certain things in games?
Yeah, this game is big time that.
Yeah, the combination of that gem shattering sound and the visual effect of it is just, it's delicious.
And the way the gems look, just that faceted, shiny, and like when you build a chain that just snakes all throughout like the space, and it's just like, and you see it like follow like a domino effect, and then everything drops down. Oh God, yeah, no, like I have an almost romantic relationship with Puzzle Fighter.
Yeah.
It's heaven. It's heavenly.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's an interesting one to bring up, I think, as well, because it kind of highlights within what we're talking about. There's kind of several subdivisions that we can think of.
Yes,
and Puzzle Fighter is very much sort of a prime example of the competitive versus puzzler.
Yes,
which I think, in the grand scheme of things, is probably personally my least favorite kind of puzzler.
It usually is mine too.
Yeah, but it also seems to be one of the most widespread forms of puzzlers that we get today anyway. But yeah, Puzzle Fighter is a great example of how that works. So it's less about... I mean, there is a degree of surviving as long as possible and that kind of thing, but it is mostly about setting up these combinations to attack your opponent. It's about competing against someone else, whether that's another player or a computer opponent. But yeah, it's a great example of that kind of thing. And that's sort of the first kind of puzzle game to talk about today. The second one, I think, is... I mean, this isn't necessarily the best example of it, but this is an example of the second type of game I want to talk about, which is a solo-centric game that you can either play in terms of a stage-based experience, in which you sort of have to clear various stages under various circumstances, or a marathon puzzler in which it just keeps going until you run out of skill, basically.
And speed, generally the speed will increase.
Yes,
and some games will actually introduce new elements as it progresses.
Yes, so this second PS1 game that kind of embodies that for me is a game called Ballistic. It's also known as Puzzloop. Its original Japanese and arcade releases were as Puzzloop, but for some reason they've renamed it to Ballistic when it came to PS1. And this is a game by Mitchell Corporation, brought over to the West by THQ. You'll probably know it as the game that Zuma ripped off.
Okay.
Yeah, so this game came first, and Zuma was so similar to this. I don't know if there actually was a legal case, but there was certainly some legal arguments being made by Mitchell Corporation suggesting that PopCap may have infringed on their intellectual property slightly. But yeah, so this is a game where you have a spiral-shaped path, and coloured balls roll down this path gradually towards an end point. If they reach the end point, you lose. And to get rid of the balls, you have to shoot out from a cannon in the middle. And if you get 3 or more balls of the same colour touching, then they disappear. And there's an additional mechanic on top of that, whereby if you create a gap in the chain of balls and the... I'm going to say balls a lot in this. You're going to have to...
There's just something specific about the phrase, get a gap in the chain of balls.
Please, we're better than this.
You need some Your boys need some breathing room.
Anyway, so if there is a gap in your chain of balls, and the balls on either side of the gap are the same colour, so let's say they're both blue, for example. A pair of blue
Let's not. Better than green, I guess.
Yeah, then they will snap together, and that will often allow you to kind of recover a bit of time on the spiral. And so there's 2 ways you can play Ballistic. So it kind of covers both of the other types of puzzle I wanted to talk about. So it's got the stage-based game where you just have a set amount of things coming towards you, and you have to clear them out to complete the level. And then there is also a endurance mode in there where you just have to last as long as possible. So I really like this game. The PS1 port is really good. And I actually have rather fond memories of this because... it's a game that we actually had the arcade version of in my student union at university.
Oh, cool!
So in the union bar, I think it was, there were a few arcade machines in the corner. They had Sega Rally. They had Thrill Drive, which is a game that no one remembers. But every time I play Burnout, I think this is like Thrill Drive, but no one remembers Thrill Drive. And they had Puzzloop. And yeah, me and my friend Kat, we've spent a lot of 10p's playing Puzzloop. While getting increasingly drunk. So that's nice. Next one on the list. I've got the PS1 version in front of me for reference, but I strongly discourage anyone to never, ever, ever play the PS1 version of this, which is Cleopatra Fortune.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
This is a fucking brilliant game. So this is by Taito. The best way to play this, incidentally, that is readily accessible in the West is probably the Taito Legends version, which has the original arcade version in there as well. There is a Dreamcast version, but I believe that only came out in Japan, but that does have quite a few enhancements in there.
It's ugly. The Dreamcast version is ugly as sin.
Yeah.
Compared to the original, the arcade original. B, go on eBay and look up what it goes for.
I haven't dared.
Upwards of $300.
Nice. Yeah, you can get the PS1 version cheap, but there's a reason for that.
It's garbage.
Yeah. Pick up Taito Legends 2 for the PS2 or Xbox, or I think there's a PC version of that even, so and you can play it in there instead. So, Cleopatra Fortune. This is a falling block puzzler, but rather than matching colours or making lines in this, what are you doing in this? You're surrounding treasures, aren't you?
Yeah,
so you're trying to make enclosed spaces with treasures inside them.
Yes, which is radically different, because you have to totally change your entire approach to a puzzler. Because you're not trying to match any colors or any imagery at all. Yeah. You're literally just... There are some pieces that are stone, and there are some pieces that are treasures. And then you have to entomb the treasures in the stone to clear them. So, but like, it doesn't matter. You could put 10 treasures that are the same treasure next to each other.
Yeah.
Like, that's not... They won't go away. They won't disappear. You have to entomb them. And then later, as the difficulty increases, they introduce mummies. Mm-hmm. And mummies can only be destroyed if you entomb them with a treasure.
Yes.
So
yeah,
it's
yeah. So this one is kind of a combination between marathon and stage based, because there is an end to it. Like, if you get to level 100 of it, you will finish it.
Yes.
But under most circumstances, unless you're an extremely good player of this game, you won't see that ending. So in practice, it's more like a marathon puzzler. But yeah, it's a fantastic game that I love very dearly ever since I tried it for the first time, which is actually quite recently. I wasn't familiar with it until I picked up Taito Legends 2, maybe a year or two back. But yeah, it's a game I go back to so often now because it's so good. And that music...
I was going to say, and I'm sure it has nothing to do with A, the music, B, the adorable little chibi Cleopatra that cheerleads you on from the bottom left corner when you play.
Yes. Oh, it's fantastic. Got to be one of my all-time favorite puzzles now. Absolutely. So, yeah, definitely seek that out if you can. It's a shame it hasn't had sort of more widespread ports and releases. I as far as I'm aware, there's no sort of modern arcade archives re-releases of it or anything like that. So yeah, your best bet, as I say, is the PS2 or Xbox or PC versions of Taito Legends 2.
There is an individual on YouTube who does a complete playthrough.
Yeah,
and my friend and I watched it on Saturday, and our jaws were just in our lap the entire time. Like what am I witnessing? It was like, I love this game. I had only brought that video up to play the music for my friend, because I was telling him that I was obsessed with the music, and he was like, "How can it be that good?" And I'm like, "It's an entire experience." So I had to bring this video up. But then an hour later, we were still watching this guy make his way to level 100. It's this game. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah. I'm going to be doing a painting of the Cleopatra.
Oh, fantastic!
Very, very soon.
Yeah, yeah.
From this,
it's not Cleopatra technically.
Oh, who is it? It's supposed to be. I can't remember
what her name is. It's something like. Hold on, I'll look it up. I did make this point when I actually wrote about it. So let me see if I can find out. It begins with P. I can't remember what it is though. But no, she's not Cleopatra. She's just dressed up as Cleopatra.
Oh, well, that doesn't make it confusing at all.
Not at all. But and also it doesn't matter. But I want to know now.
No, this is obscure game knowledge. This is what we do.
Hold on. Here we are. Here's my review. Patarako. There we go.
Okay, so it doesn't even... It's not like a real... Well, maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know my Egyptian history.
Yeah, no, she's called Patarako, and she actually puts in a guest appearance in Puchi Carat, which coincidentally is next on my pile. So Puchi Carat, I mean, there's an argument to be made that this isn't necessarily a puzzle game in the same way as what we're talking about here, because it's technically a block breaker. So it plays kind of like a combination between Breakout and Buster Move or Puzzle Bobble. In that,
I would argue that these games classify as what we're talking about, though, because, like I said, it's all about space management and clearing a space via reflexes to achieve a score. Yeah, and so I'll give it to you.
Yeah, Puchi Carat definitely, because of specifically that space management aspect. Because in Puchi Carat, what you do is you have these coloured gems coming down from the top of the screen, as in a puzzle game. But rather than matching colours or anything like that, you're just hitting a ball back and forth with a paddle at the bottom of the screen. And the reason I compare it to Buster Move and Puzzle Bobble, which will probably come up today at some point as well, is that if you make it so that a group of gems is no longer attached to the top of the screen somehow, then they will fall. So it's in your interest to try and set up your shots so that you can basically snap off these big chunks of gems in one go. And that sort of gives it quite an interesting different focus to your more typical block breaker, whether it's Breakout or Arkanoid or something like that. So and I really like it. And also Puchi Carat has kind of an element that comes back in a lot of these games, which is lovely character design. So there are a lot of games from this period in particular, so the PS1 era, also the Neo-Geo was going a lot around this time as well. I've got a couple of Neo-Geo titles.
I was going to say that it won't be surprising to you that there are Neo-Geo titles on my list of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, a big part of the appeal of a lot of these games, particularly the kind of competitive versus ones, was the inclusion of characters in them, and they were typically incorporated either as a little chibi sprite at the side or as a massive fully animated kind of backdrop to what you were doing. Puchi Carat takes that latter approach, and it's beautiful. So the characters in that are all like sort of mid to late 90s anime type designs, and they just look wonderful, and they animate beautifully, and they respond to how well you're doing in the game and that sort of thing. And it's one of my favorite things in this era of games, and it's a reason that I play a lot more of the versus puzzle games from this period than I might otherwise do so, just because the characters are so appealing to me. But Puchi Carat, there's a few ways you can play this. The PS1 version is excellent. It's an excellent arcade port, and it's got some additional content over the arcade original. But Puchi Carat, the original arcade version, is also in that Taito Legends 2 pack as well. So definitely worth your time, if only for Peridot. Yes. So a couple more to bring up from the PS1 era. One is Starsweep, which I wasn't familiar with at all until quite recently. So someone brought it up when I just happened to mention that I was interested in puzzle games and wanted to hear some of some other people's favourites. And Starsweep is, again, it's another falling block puzzle game. It got a straight to budget release over here. But I can't remember offhand who developed this one, because the only credit...
Familiar with Starsweep too. I never played it, but it was also a budget release. Yeah, in the States.
So it is a Japanese one, but the only credit I've got on the box and the manual here is just to Midas Interactive, who are the publishers.
A1 Games is the developer.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so Starsweep is another falling block game, but in this one you have...
Oh, no, they're not. They're the publisher.
You have kind of long, thin blocks of different colours, and you're trying to match like coloured ones in this one. But because they're long, thin blocks, you have to arrange them very differently to how you might do in something like something with sort of specifically coloured gems and so on. And you end up sort of building this tower in various ways. And again, there's various different ways you can play with this. There's a competitive mode, which gets ludicrously difficult by the end of it, in the arcade mode. But then there's also a mode where you have to sort of dig down through these clouds by making matches and taking the clouds with you as well. So, this is a fun game, and just the way it's set up and presented, it's kind of hard to explain in just words. You kind of have to see how it plays, really. So I'll make sure there's some footage in the video version of the podcast. But yeah, it has quite a different feel from a lot of other games of the period, but it's definitely a good one.
The developer of Starsweep is a company called Fupac, Fupac.
Okay.
And they have done nothing I've ever heard of.
Fair enough.
Looks like a lot of just the kind of budgety stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of some visual novel stuff. Something called Roommate novel. Something called a series called Happy Lesson that they've done a couple of. But yeah, none of this stuff looks like it made its way out of Japan.
Okay. All right, I've got a couple more PS1 ones. One of them is Magical Drop, which I suspect is probably going to come up in your Neo-Geo discussion, so I'll hold that for now.
Yeah.
Last one I want to mention then is a Taito one that I don't think a lot of people are super familiar with, but it's called Landmaker. Have you heard of this one?
Landmaker? No, not familiar at all.
Yeah, so Landmaker is a really cool game from Taito. The PS1 version has actually got two very different game modes in it that kind of work on the same mechanics, but they're presented completely differently. The basic concept of Landmaker is you have an isometric grid, but you kind of fire stuff up it in a kind of 2D way, but the actual layout of it is as isometric diamonds.
Holy shit, this is cool.
Yeah, and
wow.
what you're doing in this is you're collecting together square groups of the same color to create buildings, and then depending on what mode you're playing, you can either just get rid of the buildings by firing the right color at the corner of the building, which will destroy it and anything attached to it, or if you're playing the puzzle mode, which was added for the PS1 version, then you have like a prerequisite size of building that you have to try and make before you run out of moves. But yeah, this is a super cool game. And as I say, the PS1 version has these two completely different ways to play. So the puzzle mode is presented using fairly simplistic low poly graphics, but it's got this lovely kind of minimalist feel to it. And the concept of that is that you're building various cities. So the better you do in these various challenges, which are generally just as simple as like make a 5x5 building or something like that, starting with a layout of these gems. Yeah, the better you do in these various challenges, the more the city will grow. So you have to try and sort of grow this city as soon as possible. But then there's also the arcade mode, which rather than having low poly 3D graphics, has this lovely pixel art. And that is a more competitive angle on it. So in that one, you're competing against someone else to try and construct buildings and destroy them and then attack your opponent. And sort of conceptually, it doesn't really feel like it makes a whole lot of sense, but it's really fun, and it's something very different to what we've got, and it's not terribly well known from what I can make out, but yeah, it's very, very good. I tried it for the first time the other day, and I thought, I'll just try this quickly, so it's something else I can talk about. I spent the whole evening playing it.
I've never seen this before. This is so unique visually with this isometric style. It's a bit like Bust-A-Move, eh? Like bank shotting these things.
Yes. So there's a strong focus on sort of bouncing things off corners, and then the stuff continues to slide until they slot into place. So there's kind of an almost sort of shuffleboard-esque angle to it, where you're trying to sort of make trick shots to get things into awkward locations. And in the puzzle mode, you have to do things like take into account how the stage moves as well. So the way that you have the time pressure in the puzzle mode is that the wall at the back of the screen gradually advances towards you, and it pushes anything down when it collides with something. And so there's various levels in this puzzle mode where you have to specifically let it push stuff into various arrangements to create buildings. And that's just a complete adjustment from any other puzzle game I've played, where you're deliberately letting the game advance and push stuff towards you. Yeah. Fantastic game. Well worth a look. Yeah. All right, shall we talk about some Neo-Geo stuff?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just have a couple. Mainly Magical Drop. Because let's face it, Magical Drop is great. So Magical Drop's interesting because, well, first of all, I think I need to talk about like kind of what's at the heart of my love for these kind of games. Because like the more I've been thinking about, I think this might be my favorite genre.
Yeah.
Like, I think this might legitimately be my favorite. Like if there was some kind of demon in my bedroom that was like, everyone you know and love will die unless you select only one type of genre of video game and only play that for the rest of your life. Like, I think I'd be like, puzzle games. Like, and I think to me, it's this absolute distillation of the notion of gaming.
Yes, definitely.
Right, so like, puzzle games are, by their very nature, exceedingly abstract. Mm-hmm. Like, of course there are ones with narratives, but it's dumb. The narratives are dumb. Mm-hmm. Like, this is a pure gameplay experience. Like, if you boiled all the special aesthetics and the graphical styles of them away, they could still function if they were nothing but sequences of circles and rectangles with color.
Yeah.
Like, it's pure abstraction. It is... They are the mechanic fans, like, ultimate genre. Mm-hmm. Because these are just playgrounds for mechanics. Like, clockwork mechanics that work together to build an experience. And so I think that's kind of why I look at these. So like, that's what makes this discussion so fascinating to me. Like, looking at this footage of Landmaker and talking about the way Puzzle Fighter works. I mean, obviously a lot of the games we love in these genres are because of a fusion of aesthetic and presentation with the mechanics. But at the end of the day, it's talking about their different systems that make them interesting. So, like, what's cool is now we move on to Magical Drop, which just takes, once again, everything we just talked about and learned about other puzzle games, throws it right out the window and forces you to learn a whole new set of skills. Mm-hmm. So, in Magical Drop, you're not making the blocks or the pieces fall. You're not shooting them into place. You're grabbing the ones that are already there.
Yeah.
Right, so in Magical Drop, you have a little gnome friend on the bottom that you can move left and right, and he has a little indicator of dots to show you which column he's standing underneath. And the gems themselves come from the top of the screen, and they build down to crush you on the bottom. Mm-hmm. What you can do, as your little gnome friend, is you reach up and you pull the blocks down. They're little gems, the colored gems. Yeah. Then you shift left or right, and then you shoot them back up into place. But you can't shoot them until you've grabbed them first. So instead of constructing a space out of what you're given, you're actually responsible for rearranging the mess that's created for you. Yeah. And then by matching groups of the same color, you clear gems and clear space. A radically different mechanical take on what is once again what I mentioned at the beginning of this discussion at the core of this type of game, which is spatial management, but just a whole different take on it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, that's Magical Drop, and it's hectic, and it's a good versus puzzler. And then moving on to aesthetics, it's just it's got a really adorable presentation where it's focused on the decks of the tarot cards. Yep. So, like, all the characters are characters from the tarot cards, just in these adorable, chibi, bright color anime style, And the Death and the Empress are my queens, and I love them. Because the Empress is just, like, bondage queen with, like, a freaking riding crop, and she just, when she, like, scores on you, she just, like, slaps the riding crop, and your screen fills with garbage. She's the best. Yeah, so I mean, Magical Drop is just, once again, a radical approach to what should be a familiar concept, and that's what makes it so good. Mm-hmm. Also on the Neo-Geo is Money Idol Exchanger or Puzzle Idol Exchanger. I was hoping you'd bring this up. I was depending on where you are. And this is conceptually similar, but it throws the mix in of you're working with coins that can combine in value when you match them up. Mm-hmm. So it starts out the same. You reach up, pull down, and reorganize space. But instead of color matching gems, you're putting coins of different denominations together to make larger denominations before you clear them to maximize your score. Mm-hmm. And it also has a similar adorable aesthetic.
I want to emphasize the aesthetic of this one because it is sort of late 90s anime magical girl Sailor Moon. This game is just, I just want to stop and look at it every time I boost it out. Because the intro is pure like Sailor Moon. Like, it's got a silhouette of the main girl running in the background and other characters appearing, and there's like whooshing hair all over the place and big eyes and triangular mouths and blonde-haired women that go oh and that kind of thing. And it's, oh god, I love this game.
Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah, it is. Like you say, it's the interesting thing about this is that Magical Drop had already asked you to unlearn things that you knew about puzzle games, and then this game goes and asks you to unlearn most of, but not all of, the stuff you learned in Magical Drop. Yeah. So the whole kind of coin exchanging thing is a really interesting mechanic because it's kind of not a symmetrical mechanic. So it's not a case of like you always match 2 coins to do this. Like if you want to make a 50 coin, you have to match 5 10s. But if you want to make a 100 coin, you only have to match 2 50s. And so it makes logical sense. But if you're used to something like Magical Drop, where there's like a constant, it's always a constant mechanic. It's just an additional layer of things to think about that I think makes this game really interesting. Yeah, I really like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good stuff. And of course, you can't talk about the Neo-Geo and puzzle games without talking about Puzzle Bobble, or Bust a Move, whatever you want to call it. Which, once again, hey, totally different take on similar concepts. So once again, we're talking about spatial management through color matching, but instead of building the space from the top down, you're once again, as with Magical Drop, presented with a screen that gradually fills with garbage from the top towards you instead of building. You're given the garbage, and then what you're given is you're given gems additionally, and you have a little cannon that can shoot those gems to make color matches. So you're trying to make bank shots and match these colors by almost in a billiards way, like you're bouncing the little gems off the wall to get them to hit where they need to go, and you're given a indicator in the center of what gem you're going to get next, so you can kind of try to plan moves ahead of time, and the whole thing is framed with adorable characters from the Bobble universe. So that was kind of one of the Neo Geo's killer apps for many years, was Puzzle Bobble.
Yeah. My first encounter with this was there was a PC version released.
Oh, sure.
That was a really good port of it, and I was doing work experience on PC Zone magazine here in the UK at the time, and Puzzle Bobble brought the entire office to a standstill for like a week.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it was so good.
Oh, I shouldn't have Googled Money Idol Exchanger. I forgot about this nasty blonde.
Yes. Oh, I played her this morning, and I did, just like the first time I made a match and she did an oh ho ho.
You know.
Yeah, Chris is going to be into her.
I'm done. I forgot all about her. I'm out. Close window. Get me out of this. Abort.
Right. Well, we've talked about this for 45 minutes so far, so I'm going to limit myself on talking about too many other things, but there are a few more that I'd like to bring up.
What I need from you, man, is you got to bring the thunder. What are some weird, like, Atari ones and stuff? Because, like, I need...
Well, here's the interesting thing, because sort of the puzzle game genre in the form we're talking about here kind of didn't exist until sort of Tetris and stuff came out. I do have one example though, which is actually coming up on the Atari A to Z series, so I won't talk about it in too much detail now, but this is Uncle Henry's Nuclear Waste Dump.
Oh,
yeah. So Uncle Henry's Nuclear Waste Dump was a type-in listing from Antic magazine in kind of I guess it would have been the late 80s. And what this was a falling block game, but again, it was a twist on the formula in that you're specifically not trying to match anything, because you're dumping nuclear waste into a pit. And if you put any of the two of the same kind of nuclear waste next to each other, they will blow up. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to drop these 3 different types of barrel into this pit and make sure none of them touch each other. which sounds pretty simple to begin with. But as you start to progress, you will run into certain mechanics. Like if there is free space to the left of a barrel, for example, it will roll down the slope and land at the bottom. And if it lands on one of the same colour, then it will blow up. And that's it. And all you're trying to do in this game is try and reach the top of the screen. So you're specifically trying to fill up the bin in this one rather than trying to keep it empty. And the designer for this game, he made a point of saying after the fact that when he programmed this, he'd never heard of Tetris. So like this was kind of a completely original creation, completely independently of other stuff that was happening in this kind of emerging genre at the time.
That's awesome.
And it was just a type-in listing in a magazine. And the original author, I mean, he doesn't seem to think much of this game now, but it's fun. I enjoyed playing it. I enjoyed recording the video for it. So it's definitely worth a look. Uncle Henry's Nuclear Waste Dump. But as far as I can remember, that's pretty much the only thing from kind of the pre-NES days that I can really think of. Which is quite unusual when you think about it. But I guess it sort of exploded after Tetris came out and people realised that dropping things into a hole was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But anyway... Yeah, a couple more I want to bring up then. One is one which I can almost guarantee no one will be familiar with, which is that We Play You on Wii U has a great puzzle game in it, which unfortunately is buried in like 3 layers of menus, so most people probably won't even find it. But it's called Demolition Row. And it's a really simple puzzle game. It's just you have a pit of coloured gems again. And the mechanic in this one is that if 4 or more of them of the same colour are touching, then they will disappear and then other stuff will drop down. The twist you have in this one is that all of the blocks you get, they're all cross-shaped, so they're all in like the shape of a plus sign.
Oh,
and you can just rotate them. But like in something like columns, when they land, it will then split apart. So the component gems of that will split apart and have gravity respond on them and that kind of thing. So you can sort of drop stuff into gaps and split the piece up and that kind of thing. So
like Puzzle Fighter, you can if you tilt the gem sideways, you can break the chain.
Yeah, so it's a really simple game, but just the fact that it was included as part of Wii Party U, which is an otherwise very multiplayer centric game, it's a really fun little game. There's not a lot to it, but it's pretty addictive. You can play it on the gamepad or you can play it on the TV. And there's a 2-player mode in that. There's a stage-based mode and there's a marathon mode, and it's just kind of a neat encapsulation of pretty much everything we've been talking about here. So yeah, that's worth a look if you do happen to have a copy of Wii Party U hanging around. And I think probably the last one I want to talk about today is Soldam on Switch.
Oh yeah, I was hoping you would.
Actually, no, not the last one. There is one other than Soldam I want to talk about as well, because I said there were 3, weren't they? But I'll talk about Soldam first. So Soldam is a game by City Connection, who they were made out of the ashes of Jalico, as I recall, weren't they?
Yeah.
Or they own the rights to all Jalico stuff now. So originally, Soldam was the sequel to a Jalico platformer called Rodland, which I'm very fond of. But the Soldam was a completely different kind of game. So while Rodland was a single screen platformer in which you had to defeat all the enemies, Bubble style, Soldam was this falling block puzzle game. And Soldam's unique mechanic is that it's inspired by Reversi, or Othello, or whatever you want to call it. In that you have these coloured tiles that drop down. They fall in square formats, so made up of 4 separate tiles. And what happens is if you surround a row of the same colour with the opposite colour, then all of the ones in between will change. So just like in Reverse, if you surround a player's pieces on either side with your colour, you will flip them all over and so on. So success in Soldam is all about creating complete lines of the same colour, and the main way you do this is through using these Reversi-like mechanics. And again, it's such a different way of doing things to other puzzle games that I really like it, because it's got an element of dropping things in strategic places, but then it's also got the element that we talked about with Money Puzzle Exchange and Magical Drop, where you are rearranging the board after you've dropped things down. Because a lot of puzzle games have the thing that once you've dropped it, it's there. You have to deal with it. But in Soldam, you have the ability to rearrange the board in various ways, and that's what makes it very interesting. And the other thing that I really like about Soldam is that although there is a competitive versus mode in there, in this case it is not the focus of the experience. The central focus of Soldam is on this single player mode where you survive as long as possible. The longer you go, the more different colours you have to deal with. So you start with just 2 colours, then you go up to 3, and then there's 4. I don't know if it goes any further than that afterwards, but there's you just have to survive as long as possible. And it has quite an interesting method of handling difficulty. So a lot of these puzzle games, they have kind of a linear curve of speed as you increase. So like you play Tetris, and the higher your level goes, the faster the action goes. What Soldam does is actually something that Puyo Puyo does as well. We haven't really talked about that, but I mean, that's one of the more well-known ones. So
it's become clear that there's going to have to be an episode 2 and or 3 of puzzle games.
Definitely.
Because we've been at this for an hour, and I've got about 10 more games on my list, and I think I keep thinking of new ones as it's like we're coming back to this, so don't even sweat it, because we'll do Puyo Puyo Tetris. Like we will do this again.
Definitely. Anyway, so this difficulty mechanic I'm talking about, rather than having this gradual acceleration, what Soldam does, like Puyo Puyo, is that every 10 levels or so, it will accelerate over the course of those 10 levels up to what seems like an almost unmanageable speed. And then if you survive that seemingly unmanageable speed for a whole level, it will then slow down again.
That's what Cleopatra Fortune does as well.
Yes. So
every 10 levels, the speed resets.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting mechanic, because it sort of forces you into this interesting rhythm of sort of being thoughtful and then having to respond quickly to things. And those are kind of 2 different parts of your brain, I think, in that you're having to... When it's moving fast, you just don't really have the time to be able to plan clever things out. You just need to survive and do things as efficiently as possible. Whereas when things are going more slowly, you can sort of take your time to set up more elaborate combos and that kind of thing. And it's something that I really noticed for the first time in Soldam. But as you say, there's other games that make use of it as well. The last one I want to mention is actually one that I came across for the first time recently as well. So, and I've only played it a little bit, so I don't want to talk about it too much. And that's a PS2 game called Eggo Mania. Have you come across this before?
I remember seeing it in the stores, but I've never played it.
Yeah, so this is a game by Kemco, and the reason I want to bring it up is that it's a really interesting twist on the Tetris formula, in that you have a bin. You have shapes that are dropping down into it, but rather than dropping and placing every single shape that falls, you're in control of a little character who can walk around and jump onto the top of the shapes that you put on there.
Oh, Wario's Wood style.
Yeah, kind of. So the aim in Egomania is that you are trying to build a tower that is tall enough for you to reach a hot air balloon at the top. But the mechanics that stop you from just building a tall and thin tower is that if you don't make complete lines, then your tower will become unstable and collapse. And at the same time, there is a water level that is slowly rising up the tower as well. And if the water level reaches a line that has a gap in it, that line will leak and then collapse, which will bring your tower sort of crashing down again. And so you're just building these towers using basically Tetris pieces and a few other variants, like there's some 5-block things and there's some 2 blocks and 1 blocks as well. But yeah, you're building up this tower, trying to make as complete lines as possible, and you're racing against an opponent while you're doing this as well. So it's not directly competitive in the same way something like Puzzle Fighter is, but you are trying to do stuff more quickly than your opponent is. And just trying it for the first time last night, I just found it a really, really fun experience, and not one that I've really heard talked about all that much. I think it was another sort of straight to budget release here. It was published by Kemco, I think. I can't remember the name of the developer offhand, but they're not one that I've heard of particularly well. But yeah, it's if you like your PS2 era stuff, then this is one worth looking at. It's got quite a fun aesthetic about it. It's all the characters are eggs, so if you enjoy the Dizzy series, you'll probably get a kick out of that kind of thing. And it's got a fun soundtrack to it as well. Yeah, the
animation is really fluent.
Yeah,
this is a really neat game.
Yeah,
I never heard of this.
Yeah, it's one of those ones I just sort of picked up for like 50p or £1 recently and thought, oh, that sounds like fun. I'll give that a go. So,
very
all right.
Cool.
I'm going to resist talking about it anymore now because, as you say, we're closing in on an hour as we do this. So, is
there
there anything you want to bring up?
Yeah, I want to talk about Crystal Crisis because it's current.
Yes, sure.
Which is kind of the whole reason I wanted to talk about this topic in the first place, and I've managed not to talk about it yet. So recently, Nicholas, who is a delightful publisher, as we know, moved also into development. They did that fighting game Blade Strangers. So moving off of that, they've also introduced a puzzle game into their kind of universe, which is Crystal Crisis. Mm-hmm. Crystal Crisis is essentially Nicholas saying, you know what? Puzzle Fighter's certainly one of the best video games ever made. Why isn't there a new Puzzle Fighter? So they made Puzzle Fighter.
Yeah.
They made Puzzle Fighter for the Switch, and it's great. I don't need to describe the mechanics too much because it's literally Puzzle Fighter. It's basically a spiritual successor to Puzzle Fighter. It has introduced 2 new mechanics. So everything we talked about earlier is still in place. The 2 new mechanics are that the screen wraps around.
Oh, okay.
So, like, I shouldn't say screen, field of play. So your rectangle on your side that you have to manage the space within. If you hold left, your piece doesn't stop at the left.
Right.
It'll actually come over to the right again.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to... You can manage that space differently. But what that also means is if you flip your piece sideways... You can split that piece.
Oh, cool.
You can put one of the gems on the right side, one of the gems on the left side. So that throws a whole new wrinkle into it. The other thing that's new is that, much like Puzzle Fighter, you select a character. Each character now actually has special moves.
Yeah.
So those special moves charge as you break gems. And then either using the L trigger or the right trigger, you choose whether or not you want to deploy your special move as a defensive special move or an attack special move.
Yep.
Every one of those special moves for every character is different mechanically.
Oh, nice.
So, like there's a ninja character, and his attack special move just... for a period of 10 seconds or whatever, color blinds your enemy's screen. Everything's just gray.
Yeah.
So like he does that, or like Astro Boy, his defensive special move is lets you rotate blocks. Lets you rotate group blocks of 4 clockwise or counterclockwise to literally rearrange the stuff you've already set down.
Yeah.
Like the whole time pauses and you get like 20 seconds to do that. Mm-hmm. Or the one character creates crash gems that drop, but they're on a timer. So you don't get the instant gratification of the crash gems deleting the bricks. You have to which really lets you lay combos down.
Yeah.
So you get like 5 seconds of nothing but timed crash gems landing, and then when that 5 seconds is over, just chaos unleashes. So like every character is different.
Cool.
And what is also cool is in the option mode, you can turn off the screen wrapping and turn off the special moves if you just want classic Puzzle Fighter.
Oh, neat. That's really cool.
Yeah. Neat. It's neat. And all the characters are drawn from like all these weird places that are basically Nicholas's publication stuff. Yeah. So it's the characters from 1001 Spikes, mm-hmm. Characters from Cave Story,
yep.
Umahara Kawase.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other? I don't know.
You say Code of Princess in there as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Solange from Code of Princess is in there. She's my favorite to be so far. And really weirdly enough, characters from the history of Osamu Tezuka's anime
yes.
library. So like
I love that Astro Boy is in there.
Yeah, so like Astro Boy and Blackjack.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Yeah, so it's cool because it's like Astro Boy versus Quo from Cave Story, and he's like, golly gee, mister, you're a robot too, and it's just like cute because they're all like chibi-fied and adorable. Also super delightful, which is something that Puzzle Fighter lacked. There's a story mode.
Yeah.
it's short. You can play through it in like an hour.
Yeah.
But you make choices as to what characters you want to play, and I believe that changes the path.
Yeah.
Of who gets to play what, because like I haven't fought certain characters, and like I very specifically got to fight the boss of the game as Curly from Cave Story.
Yeah.
And I think that was due to like the fact that like in the one fight I chose to play as Curly.
Yeah.
So I think it shook out that way specifically. So I don't know how that works. I don't know how those paths trace. So I'm excited to go back and retry that. The other thing that's really, really cool, not mechanic related or anything, is the announcer for the game is Peter Cullen, who is the voice of Optimus Prime. Like the original and forever voice of Optimus Prime. Also Eeyore, but let's face it, Optimus Prime is cooler. But so if you've ever wanted to play a fighting game where Optimus Prime introduces every match and does like Soul Calibur style, like two warriors locked in eternal struggle, fight! And it's fucking Optimus Prime.
Fantastic.
Crystal Crisis is your game. And he also narrates the story mode.
Oh, wonderful.
So it's like he sets up like the stories and the clashes with like little bits of dialogue, and it's Optimus Prime. So, yeah. The only thing that I don't like about Crystal Crisis is it doesn't nail that synesthesia that Puzzle Fighter hit so perfectly. The gems are just like not as visually appealing.
Yeah.
To look at. The sound effects aren't really there. When you break gems, they don't break like domino, like they don't shatter down a line, they just break.
Oh, okay.
So it's like it's viscerally less satisfying to play than Puzzle Fighter is. But the mechanics are there, and it plays right, and it's loads of fun.
Oh, good.
But it doesn't feel quite the same. Mm-hmm. That being said, for $40 you can have a HD Puzzle Fighter on modern consoles.
Yeah.
And who's going to say no to that?
Definitely not. Oh, I'm so glad that turned out well, because I had high hopes for this one. I'm glad it's come out well.
Yeah, Nicholas is killing it. I really have to get Blade Strangers. I hear that's a lot of fun. I hear it's a perfect intro kind of tutorial style fighting game. It's almost because the special moves work like Smash Brothers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's not like complicated commands. So it's more about learning the fundamentals of a fighting game, kind of like
SNK Heroines.
I keep wanting to call Gals Fighters, but that's the original one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's more about learning the fundamentals of a fighting game in terms of timing, combo building, and spatial awareness.
Yeah,
than it is about memorizing complex inputs.
That's really important, and so many people didn't acknowledge how well SNK Heroines did that. Is they're just like, it's too simple. You're not learning how to do a Dragon Punch maneuver. It's like, no, but I'm learning when is a good time to attack and when not to attack. That's fairly fundamental.
Correct. Yeah. So I really want to check out Blade Strangers. But yes, Crystal Crisis is a really solid modern puzzler, and I recommend you check it out if you're into these games.
Awesome. I may well be ordering it after we record here.
It'll be around.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
All right. Okay, I think we should probably call time on that. As you say, there's at least 2 or 3 more episodes in us on this topic, I think, from the sound of things.
It's ridiculous.
And we haven't even got into swap puzzlers. We haven't even got into like Bejeweled and Honey Pop and Purino Party and Pokemon fucking Puzzle League. I was just gonna say we haven't touched Puzzle League, which is dangerous. Fucking let's be honest, Puzzle and Dragons is a hoot. Yes.
I have a bunch of weird games for my Vita, my DS, my GBA. We didn't talk about Gunpei.
Yeah.
Gunpei is a weird one.
Yeah.
No, we'll come back. This will be a thing.
Excellent. All right, well, let's wrap it up for today then. So, would you like to tell people where to find you online as usual?
Absolutely. MrGilderPixels.com or on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram at MrGilderPixels. Working on some cool paintings right now, as always, so please pop in, say hi, give me a retweet. It really helps me out. I need some more visibility. Hope to see you guys around.
Good stuff. And as usual, you can find all my work on MoeGamer.net and over on YouTube. If you're listening to this podcast on SoundCloud, don't forget that there's a YouTube version with video and graphics and all that exciting stuff on there. And if you're watching on YouTube, there is the SoundCloud version, so you can listen without having to watch at the same time. So there you go. As always, thank you very much for watching and or listening, and we'll see you again next time. No!
Turtle punch! No. Get the arcade feel, baby! Yeah! You like that?
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. Be sure to check out MoeGamer.net for new articles on Japanese and Japanese-inspired video games, new and old, every weekday. Every month, MoeGamer features an in-depth exploration of an individual game or series as its cover game, so be sure to check the archives to see if your favourite has had a deep dive yet. If you'd like to support the site directly, please consider becoming a patron or buying me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.